fired up for the season. I think we all agree that we've spent enough time talking about last year and the old coaching staff and looking forward to this year. And I'll be honest, Rick Bowness so far has been an absolute breath of fresh air, from a fan's perspective, at least, being pretty straight with the media and straight with the fans and speaking with the players before he tells us the exact same thing. And it's gone over quite well. Obviously, we'll see what happens on the ice. But Craig, before I even get to the coaching staff changes and the effect of Rick Bowness on this club, I have to ask you about your reaction and what you thought about Rick's real first move as head coach of the Winnipeg Jets. And that was shaking up the leadership group, removing Blake Wheeler as the captain of the Winnipeg Jets. What did you think about that, and what does that do to a team going into the first camp under a new head coach?
Well, I mean, it's what I would call it is it's certainly saber rattling. I mean, it gets everybody's attention. Certainly, Rick Bowness came in and established this is the way I'm running things. And, Rick said that he had spent a lot of time talking to different players. And, he used the words they were embarrassed about last year. He said he didn't want to make decisions based on, what he had heard from the outside. But what Rick very clearly was able to do was watch what was going on, from his observations as an opposing coach, and then certainly trying to dial in, and then through conversations. And through those conversations, it's not about, okay, yeah, we need a change, or this is a problem or whatnot. You're listening to a lot of voices. And, Blake has a big personality, and he has a very strong presence. But at the same time, I think Rick looks at it as an opportunity to give other players voices, to give other players a significant leadership role where they can assert themselves. I don't see it much differently than what Bill Guerin and Dean Evison did in Minnesota. Now, they didn't do it as quickly as Rick Bowness did, but they also don't have the same level of experience as Rick Bowness. And so, when they made the decision that Ryan Suter and Zach Parise were going out the door, it really gave everybody else an opportunity to step up and be leaders. And it's not about one player. It's always about more than one player. You don't have to wear a letter, as Daryl Sutter says. A lot of it is just decoration. It's about what are you going to do to lead. And I think Rick wanted to open it up to the group, and to open it up to people that may not have felt comfortable, asserting themselves. So it's a bold move, but it's a move not based on just change. It's based on Rick Bowness believing that this change can lead to more voices, more of an overall leadership focus rather than just a singular or a few player focus on leadership, and then build from there.
We spent a lot of time on the show talking about it, hearing from Bowness and Blake Wheeler, who spoke to it the first day to sort of get ahead of it before camp really began. And I think there's sort of consensus that this is, certainly, somewhat challenging for a player like Wheeler, who's been almost the face of the franchise for the better part of the last 5 or 6 years. And it's one of those things that can go in a couple different ways. It can be challenging. It could damage a relationship. It could have a player disgruntled, but it could also be liberating. And I think it was very obvious, Craig, that, when Blake was asked, if the captaincy had become a burden at times, he just flat out said yes. And we've seen he's so intense, the pressure that he put on himself. Do you see a path for this to actually be a good thing for not only the team overall, but also for Blake Wheeler as a member of that club, playing a bit of a different role, but still being a very important member of this hockey club?
Well, and I think you touch on a real important part. He's a good player, and he can be an important player. So when you ask me, I say this all the time, it's up to Blake how he wants to handle it. There's no way that from the outside, you're not looking and go, oh boy, what an indictment on Blake Wheeler. Now, whether that's fair or not fair, the bottom line is that it's played out in public. But Blake is mature enough. He has a lot of confidence in his abilities, and he even said, he goes, I'm still going to be a leader. And I think that's what Rick Bowness wanted to hear. And I think for Blake, his choice is, hey, listen, I am a part of the Winnipeg Jets. I want to be a difference maker for the Winnipeg Jets. So his approach to this scenario, I think, not only can benefit, as you point out, the group, I think it can also benefit Blake because he has been honest about sometimes it feeling like a burden. So if he can share that burden and, you can have more people sharing in that focus on leadership and leadership isn't just one person. You can have pockets of leadership and, one pocket can work in a certain area and another pocket can work in another area. And I think that by extension, that makes the group stronger. And I think Blake recognizes that. And I think Blake probably feels a little bit of a relief that it doesn't all have to fall on his shoulders, because sometimes what ends up happening is because you feel that burden, you think you have to have all the answers. You think you have to fix all the problems. That's quite a load to put on one person. And I think Blake recognizes that. And I think Blake can get to the beginning of this season and be a really good player like he has been for the Winnipeg Jets and still be a good leader with others being able to step up as well.
Well, I totally agree with that. And I think that if it's handled in the best way, accepting this, moving on to being a great teammate might be the best example of leadership that anybody on the team can show. And I think that is great for the collective whole. And obviously we hope he certainly said the right things and one thing you can be guaranteed of, that Blake Wheeler's going to play his ass off when he's thrown out there by Rick Bowness. Speaking of Rick Bowness, got a great piece at tsn.ca and we've seen it on SportsCenter. Can the coaching staff changes ignite the Winnipeg Jets? It's been really fun listening and dealing with Rick Bowness over the course of the last week. He had some interesting comments about some of his top players after the game, saying straight out, the veterans can't be the problem. Wasn't pleased with some shift lengths and a few of the things. I mean, your thoughts on the staff along with Scott Arniel and Brad Lauer, how impactful can they be? And what have you thought about what we've heard from Rick so far in this early stages of being back behind the bench in the peg?
Well, the first thing I'm going to say is anybody that thinks you're going to BS the Winnipeg Jets fans, you're just kidding yourself. And Rick Bowness is straight ahead. He talks about being with the right people, speaking of the organization, but he also knows the community. And you know what? Like you can come out after a game and say, oh, yeah, it's not a problem. The fans know and the supporters know. So Rick isn't even going to go down that path of trying to BS anybody. And as you pointed out earlier, he's going to tell the players, and then what he told the players, he's going to say publicly. And that, to me, is an element that I think is really important for a team. It's knowing that here's our standard, and we're going to hold everybody to it. And we're not going to try to sugarcoat it. That doesn't mean you have to be mean or say things in a derogatory manner. You can say the shift lengths are too long. Simple as that, and that's not good enough. And bottom line is, Rick is going to deliver a message that is going to be consistent, but he's not going to waver from his message, and he's not going to be fooled by anything. The biggest thing for the Winnipeg Jets to take from Rick Bowness, in my view, is simply this. They have enough good players to be a good team. But what's happened in the past? They haven't been a good team despite having a lot of good players. Mike Johnson talked about it. He said, it doesn't seem like the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Good teams, the whole is always greater. That's what Rick will bring to this team. This team has been terrible defensively. Terrible. And there's no other way to put it. Well, Rick Bowness's teams in Dallas last year, one of the best in the league. You take a group of really good players that are committed to playing defensively and committed to dialing into the details, and they can become a really good team. There's no question in my mind this Winnipeg Jets team has the capability to be that. And Rick Bowness, he's going to push that hard. And there's not going to be any in-betweens, and there's not going to be any BS.
It was so refreshing to hear, and he's been that way really from the start. But the first real example we got of that was after the exhibition game, the preseason game on Tuesday. And, he mentioned about the shift lengths, and I don't know, people have different opinions on whether his singling out a 55-second shift was a subtle reminder of some of the guys that needed to do that. Everyone can make their own decisions on it. But when we talk about 55, he's been a huge topic here ever since the end of the season where he wasn't playing and what he had to say. He's come back. He said all the right things. He seems to be engaged. But part of the reason why we talk so much about him is it's pretty clear. He's arguably the most talented guy on the team. And if this team is going to change, and we talk about leaders stepping up and showing the way, I'm not sure there's anyone that can be the agent of change for a team more than Mark Scheifele. He's got 2 years left on his contract, Craig. He's in the prime of his career right now. What are your thoughts on the challenges of Mark Scheifele that he'll be given by Rick Bowness and the opportunity there for him to turn around after what was clearly one of the most disappointing careers of a very successful career, or years of his career?
Yeah, and I think Mark Scheifele is a star player in the league, and I don't think there's any question. But, what ends up happening, teams end up going wayward, and then the individuals, start to try to find their way in different ways. And sometimes that's not always cohesive. Rick Bowness talked about it. He said the players in his conversations with the players, they were embarrassed. And Mark Scheifele is a high achiever. He's accomplished a lot in this league. But, last year is something that occurs and unfolds, and nobody's happy about it. And I think that became very evident, not only with the changes that Kevin Cheveldayoff made, but also very evident with some of the comments you've heard from the players and from Rick Bowness. And I think that bodes very well because, when you're a good player and you want to accomplish at a higher level, and you want to accomplish something you can't just do individually, and that's team success. And Mark Scheifele's had some of that, and he wants more of that. So when you come in and you now are looking at an opportunity to put last year behind you, new coach, a belief that coach can instill a defensive system and a structure that'll give your team success, that keeps players aligned. It keeps them aligned with respect to, here's how we're going to play, and I'm going to show the way. And I don't think there's any question that Mark Scheifele is more than capable of showing the way and will show the way. And that's where Rick Bowness comes in, because he's going to emphasize the things that matter. We know Mark can produce lots of points and is a very, very talented and gifted offensive player. But, doing the things that lead to team success in all areas of the game are going to be critically important for the Jets. And I don't think there's any hesitation by Mark to dial into those areas. And I think that the intersection of the change with the coach, what happened last year and feeling embarrassed, I think that now that gives Mark Scheifele and others a real opportunity to say, hey, we're better than that, and we're going to be better than that. And my belief is they will be better than that.
Where does the turnaround start, Craig, and how much needs to happen for this team to at least be back in the playoffs?
Well, what I think, if you look at all the defensive metrics that the Winnipeg Jets, you look at from the Winnipeg Jets season last year, they were at or near the bottom of the league in everything. Inner slot shots given up, rush chances, everything, cycle chances against, everything that you got to protect. So when you look at how Rick Bowness's teams played in Dallas, just go look at their defensive metrics. They don't give up the middle of the ice. They don't give up the front of the net. They don't chase out of position. They don't chase outside the dots. They don't put themselves in vulnerable positions. Because once one player chases out of position, well, now another player has to cover up. And now it becomes a revolving door of everybody trying to make up for what somebody else did that put you in that state of vulnerability. To me, Rick will give them a sense of positional discipline. Here's how we're going to play. You want to go stay in the corner? We don't need to put pressure on in the corner. Barry Trotz did this in Long Island. He took over a team that was at the bottom of the league or near at the bottom of the league defensively. Then what did he do? He took that team, improved them significantly defensively. They went to the Eastern Conference Final 2 years consecutive. That was after losing John Tavares. This Winnipeg Jets team has so many things that, to me, can breed success. And some of the things that Rick Bowness didn't have in Dallas is the offensive prowess. He didn't have the offense that is in Winnipeg. He's got a goaltender that's as good as Ottinger. Hellebuck, we know how good he can be. I think the blue line is a blue line that's more than capable. But you got to take the pressure off of them. And That helps with the forwards understanding, here's how we're going to play. We're going to play in a disciplined, positional, strong manner. We're not going to be chasing and creating vulnerabilities for ourselves all over the ice. Because that's where the Winnipeg Jets got themselves in trouble the last number of years. It was the style of game they were playing defensively that got them in trouble. I don't believe it was the players, and I don't think Kevin Cheveldayoff believes it was the players. That's another reason why I think it's an opportunity now with Rick Bowness coming in for the players to show it wasn't us.